Okay, so welcome once again to all of you. A very warm welcome for the second part of the interview readiness workshop. The first part we did last week, and after that, I promised that I'm going to do part two. So this is the part two of the interview readiness workshop. For people who were not able to attend the part one, it is freely available on YouTube as a public playlist. I'm going to put that link as well. I have put that on the LinkedIn, and the YouTube playlist link is also there on the LinkedIn post. But I'm going to share that here in the chat as well if anybody wants to access the part one recording. And on the same playlist, the part two recordings will also be uploaded. Okay. You will get a chance to ask your questions. So until then, I would request you to please be on mute when I'm speaking. That way, the recording will be clean. And then I will open the forum in the middle several times, and of course at the end for you to ask your questions. And people are still joining, so I'm going to keep admitting them in this interview readiness workshop, and we will discuss the content there. All right, so let me get started. So welcome again to the interview readiness workshop. Last week in part one, the green colored items or the line items we covered. So let's go through quickly. So we went through the confidence building strategies where we discussed that pre-interview, what you have to do in order to get the confidence, in order to boost your confidence during the interview. Then we also walked through the resume template. There was a resume template personally which I use. So I shared it with the team, and it's also available. The link is available in that YouTube playlist in the description. And so you can download that resume template. You can download the material we discussed. This OneNote I have put in both PDF format and in OneNote format for you to download. And we went through the important tips for a resume, for a good resume. Then we went through the communication skills, do's and don'ts, which were completed also in part one. There we discussed basically the visual cues or the verbal cues you should always keep in mind, the do's and don'ts, what you should do during an interview, including your soft skills, how you should speak, how you should dress up. So we discussed all that for an interview. And then we delved into the technical questions for three areas: general technical questions, BW technical questions, and SAC. So those three areas were covered as part of the part one of the interview readiness workshop. Now in part two, I'm going to cover the native HANA technical questions. So that's the part which is pending from a technical standpoint. And then we will open the forum for a general Q&A from all the participants. All right. So let's go into the technical HANA questions, which are the most frequently asked questions for a HANA interview. Let me make it slightly bigger. Okay. And please let me know if it is not visible or someone is not able to see the screen properly. I will try to, stop and reshare it again if required. All right. So for the HANA aspect, what are the most frequently asked questions? So one of the most frequently asked questions is, how would you optimize a performance of a calculation view? So there is a HANA calculation view. It is live, operational in production, but now it has started giving performance issues. So how are you going to handle that? What would be your approach for resolving the performance issue? So these are the most common things you should check for improving the performance. Point number one, first check if unnecessary data is coming up from those base tables, and if you can put an input parameter to filter the data at a table level and improve the performance. So for example, the user is only concerned with company code C001, for example. And we have 10 company codes in the base table, but only C001 is the company code which user is interested in. But your HANA CV is actually bringing all the 10 all the 10 company code data, and then the user is filtering at the very top level using a variable. So that you can restrict at the very base level of the table. So any HANA calculation view will start either with another calculation view or with a table or view, right? So at the very base level, whatever that is, you can put an input parameter which can filter the data at the very bottom of the CV. What that will do is, if your data, which was earlier for 10 company code, 100,000, now it will only come up for one company code, which is maybe 25,000 or 30,000. And then all the calculations, all the transformations, everything will be applied on that 25,000 records, not 100,000 records. So that's going to improve your query performance or a calculation view performance. Second point, unnecessary aggregation node is not required. So many a times what we do is we put aggregation nodes in the middle as well. Sometimes it is required. I'm not saying it is not required every time. It is required sometimes because you want to aggregate data and then you want to do further calculations based on that aggregated data set. So wherever it is required, fine. But wherever it is not required, you should not put it, because aggregating the data takes a lot of horsepower in the HANA database. So that's why don't put unnecessary aggregation nodes. If you can avoid it, if you don't actually need the data to be aggregated at that level, don't do that. Aggregation is anyways there at the very top level, right? For a cube CV or a cube with start join CV. And aggregation already happens at the top level. So if it is fine there, then let it be the default aggregation node. Don't put unnecessary aggregation nodes to the CV. Third point, inner joins. If there are inner joins, they are expensive. Why it is expensive? Because inner join means it has to compare left-hand side, it has to compare right-hand side, and it has to see whatever is the common denominator or whatever is the common record between the two. So that takes a lot of time and a lot of horsepower. Instead of that, left outer join are preferred in a HANA calculation view, and it is also safer. Safer in the sense there is less chance of data loss. So even if, say for example, you start with the transaction data, your billing item example. Now you want to get the master data for all the customers for those billing item data. So you have customers in the billing item transaction data. Now you want the customer related attributes like customer region, customer country, etc. If that does not exist, say for example, in the master data, a customer A does not have the attributes. So if you put an inner join, it's going to completely filter out that customer. It's not going to show you in the final output. So that is a data loss. Left outer join will make sure that that data loss does not happen. And if you don't have attributes on the master data, it will just return a null or a blank. But it will not filter out that customer. That customer will still show up in the output. That's why left outer joins are preferred compared to inner joins. Next point, joins on calculated column. Yes, I have faced this many a time during my project. When I was with Deloitte, we had a major implementation of Native HANA data warehouse. There was no BW. Everything was built within the HANA itself. There we saw that the previous developer had joins, a lot of joins on calculated columns. What is a calculated column? Calculated columns is something which does not exist in your base tables. You create it in the HANA CV. For example, first name is one column, last name is second column. You created a calculated column because you wanted the full name. So you created a calculated column called full name and you concatenated your first name and last name. And based on that calculated column, you did a join. So that is a very expensive operation in HANA. So try to avoid it. Again, many times we cannot avoid it. That's the only way out. So then we have to look for other improvement measures or other improvement techniques. But if you can avoid the join on calculated column, then we should do that. There is a feature called dynamically generated column in Native HANA. which you can create at a table level. The syntax is something like this. So if you just Google it, dynamically generated columns, it is, so you say column, right? Column name, generated always as, and then you put a formula, right? So formula can be anything like your concatenation or your adding to column values and things like that. So whatever formula is permissible, you can put that. And if you just Google it, generated columns in HANA tables, you will get the exact syntax. But this is the general syntactical scaffolding guideline I can remember right now. I used it some time back. That's why I exactly don't remember the full syntax. But if you just Google it, you'll find it. So the idea is, if your calculated columns can be created as dynamic columns at a table level, that is always preferred, because it is already created for you. When you load the data in the table, this column will automatically generate the value based on the formula, and it is ready for you. And then you can directly use that column for a join. You don't have to create any calculated columns in your HANA CV. So this is a big savior when you want to push down the calculated columns at a table level. Okay, so this is another improvement technique. Then we have caching. So HANA calculation view results can be cached. So caching, if it is there in the semantics node, there is a property and you can enable that caching. So if you can enable that caching, then that will store the data pre-calculated. In BW, we used to call pre-calculated set. So it will every day morning, it's going to calculate the result and keep it in the cache, and all the queries which are hitting the HANA CV will basically hit that cache, and the data will come from the cache. So that is another way to improve the performance. Next, we have the union pruning. So it is very important. So if you have union nodes in your HANA CVs, then you can enable union pruning. How it can be enabled? Basically, there are two ways. So one is you can have a column which can identify the source of your union. So if you have planning data and if you have actual data, and if you are unioning it, then you can create a calculated column in the union and say that source. And the source can be plan for the planning side and actual for the actual sides. And based on that, you can see that the user wants the actual data or the planned data. You can create an input parameter based on that particular calculated column, and then prune the result only to go on that side of the union. If the user is asking for planned data, then you don't have to look at the actual data at all. So union will only go into the planned side, get the data and show it to you. And vice versa, if they want actual, then union will only go to the actual and do it for you. So that is one way. Second way is table. You can create a table specifically designed and geared towards union pruning. And based on that table, dynamically, the CV can decide that which side of the union it has to go. It has to go to the actual side or the planned side. So union pruning is another technique which you can use in a HANA CV to improve the performance. Next is execute in SQL engine. So this basically happens in a formula expression, right? If you're creating a calculation or if you're putting a filter expression, not formula expression, sorry, I meant filter expression. So if it's a filter expression or it's a calculated column, then on the right hand side, you have the option of execute in SQL engine, right? What that means is it's basically going to create a better physical plan for the SQL optimizer behind the scenes. There is something called a SQL optimizer, which sits in HANA database. And that SQL optimizer converts all your incoming data requests into SQL queries. And that SQL query is sent into HANA database, and HANA database resolves the data. So what kind of query is created, that depends on the optimization plan for the SQL optimizer. And if you put this in execute in SQL engine, it provides a better plan and faster SQL query compared to the original calculation engine. And that sometimes helps. Sometimes there is a disclaimer around that. It's not guaranteed that this is going to help you every time. In fact, I have seen counterproductive results also. Sometimes when you do executing SQL engine, it actually took more time than the calculation engine. So it all depends, what kind of formula you have written. If it's a case statement, if it's an if-else statement, if you have used a lot of functions in the formula, then sometimes SQL engine is worse than the calculation engine. But a lot of times it helps. It has reduced the time for us in many cases. So it's basically case to case. You have to put that property and then check the results. So it depends and it varies. But this is one of the optimization techniques for HANA calculation. And then finally, use modularization in coding. That means when you write SQL code, so for example, you write a table function, and that table function has hundreds of lines of code. So there are some guidelines for coding. So first guideline is that break the code into multiple internal tables. So don't write a one big SQL statement. Instead of that, break it into smaller chunks and use those internal tables one after the other. So create one internal table. Then in the second internal table, you can use the first one. Then in the third internal table, you can use the second one, so on and so forth. So that modularization will help you debug the code better, and also it helps in the performance optimization. Avoid subqueries in the code. Yes, a very important piece. So if you have a select inside a select, so say for example, if you have select ABC from table XYZ, where my customer industry in, and then again in the bracket you write another select. So it's called a subqueries. Select inside a select or loop inside a loop. In ABAP, we used to say loop inside a loop, avoid that. So similarly, subquery, select inside a select, avoid that in HANA because that is an expensive statement. So basically, if you have a sub select, so first do that, store the result in an internal table or store the result in a variable and then use that variable in the next select instead of writing the select inside the parent select. So try to avoid that. And try to use joins as much as possible. In ABAP, sometimes what happens is, in ABAP, we have something called for all entries. So if we have to take data from multiple tables, we use for all entries in ABAP. For all entries. That means you are basically saying that for all entries in table 1, get me the data from table 2. Or for all entries in table A, get me the data from table B. In HANA, if you have to translate that, it will basically be a join. Preferred is left outer join. A simple join will do your task what ABAP used to do for all table entries. Okay, don't try to copy. Sometimes what happens is when we have to translate an ABAP code into a HANA SQL script, we just copy, we want to copy the code exactly. And for all entries, we basically end up writing a subquery. Subquery means select inside a select. Do not do that for performance reasons. Performance will be bad. Instead of that, just combine table A and table B with a left outer join or an inner join or a text join or whatever you want to do. But basically use a join. Joins are very fast in native HANA compared to ABAP. In ABAP, the joins were not very fast. That's why we used to have for all entries and looping, etc. In fact, loop also can be very easily converted into a HANA join. So my recommendation is use joins as much as possible in native HANA. Plus, modularize your code, break it into multiple internal tables, and then inside those small chunks, use always joins instead of subqueries. Okay. So those are some of the techniques you can mention to the person in the interview or to the panel that this will be your approach to optimize the performance of a HANA scene. Okay. Next question. Give me an example where you use database procedure and an example where you use table functions. So which customer scenarios will force you to use a database procedure and will force you to use a table function? Very common answer and very valid answer is database procedure I have used to schedule our daily loads. So when your data is coming from SDA, Smart Data Access, for example, from a third-party database, or you have S4 HANA and you don't have SLT, you are using SDA as your ETL tool, then you can create a database procedure which will automate your daily loads. So daily you don't have to write SQL statements. You put your select clause into a database procedure and schedule that database procedure on a daily basis. So basically, database procedures are usually used to automate the daily repetitive tasks like daily data loads. That's a very, very valid and very most frequently used scenario for a database procedure. Another use case of a database procedure is input parameters, HANA input parameters. So you have HANA input parameters populated by DB procedure. This is also one of the scenarios, also very frequently used. Maybe not as frequently as this one, the first scenario, which is to schedule or automate daily loads, but this is also, second most frequently used scenario. Now, can any of you tell me what is the business case or the use case where you will populate an input parameter via database procedure? Anyone? You can feel free to unmute and speak. So I'll repeat my question. Where will you use database procedure to populate an input parameter in a HANA CV? Anyone? No one has faced this particular use case? Shrikant, have you faced it? Izar, Karthik, Kiran, anyone? Am I audible, guys? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, Devanshu, you are.
Okay. I just want to make sure because there was no one was speaking up, so I just want to make sure I am audible or not. Okay,
Yeah,
let me give
it's
you.
like filtering the list of values.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Filtering the list of values, or another scenario. Can you think of any other scenario? So you're absolutely right. Filtering.
Deriving the list of values.
Same thing, yes. Filtering the list of values or deriving the value set. What else?
Drilling down, right, Dipanshu? Like drill down kind of scenario.
Drill down. What do you mean by that exactly?
Suppose if you are having some n multiple materials, like if you want couple of materials to be chosen by an input parameter.
Yeah, so that is covered in filtering the list of values or deriving the list of values.
To put the default values, Devanshu.
Yes, absolutely. Default values. For example, you want to run the CV always for current period -1. Example, right? So for current period -1, you want to default it. Fiscal period, I'm talking about current fiscal period. So what will you do? You will create an input parameter based on the FISC/per field, and then you will populate it with a database procedure. In that database procedure, what will you do? You will get the current period and you will subtract -1 from that, and then you will populate it. This will not be user input. This will be invisible to the user. This is happening behind the scenes. Your input parameter is automatically filtering the data for current fiscal period -1 or current date -1 or whatever is your requirement. And then your HANA calculation is always returning that data. That is one of the most commonly used business case for populating input parameter via database procedures. And the first one is filtering the list of values. So say, for example, you want to run this only for certain regions, for North America only. So US, Canada, and Mexico, for example. So you can filter the data in advance without any user intervention using the input parameters populated via database procedures. So that is another scenario. And first one is of course very, very common. Create a database procedure and schedule it to run it on a daily basis. And then on a daily basis, your data will be automatically populated in your tables. How will you schedule the database procedure? This can also be an interview question. How will you schedule the database procedure to run on a periodic basis, daily, weekly, monthly, or whatever is the requirement?
Using the
Access
access jobs. Yeah.
Exactly. So scheduling.
Access job.
Yes. Scheduling the database procedures is usually done via access jobs. Okay, you will create an access job, and in that access job, you will mention the database procedure and you will mention the frequency. So when you mention the frequency, what is the format of the frequency? The format is cron format. Cron is basically your operating system. So where you have your day, your month, your year, your day of the week, then your hours, your minutes, your seconds, something like this. So this is the format of the frequency given within the access job. So you will give your day, your month, your year, your day of the week, and hours, minutes, seconds, and it can also accept negative values, including negative values. What do you mean by negative values? Negative value means you are counting from the end of the month. So say for example, if I want they run this job on the third Sunday of the month. So you will come from the end and you will say that the second last Sunday of my month, you will do that. You can also do positive, but you can also do negative. So all that format you will provide in the access job, and then you can schedule the database procedure. Another way to schedule it is via external tools. So you can use external tools to schedule. So basically, we have something called
Autosys.
Yeah. Autosys. External tools can also schedule access jobs. External tools. So Autosys is one of them. Any other external tool you guys have used? Alteryx. Alteryx is one of the external tools, which is one of the popular tools. We have used that to schedule database procedures. Then there are some other tools as well. So there are a lot of tools now in the market which can easily connect to HANA database and schedule the database procedures. So there are external tools. You can use that, or you can use the inherent HANA database provided access job, which you can also do. Okay. All right. Next question. Table functions. When will you use table functions? Why your graphical CV is not enough and you had to go for table functions? Give me one scenario. So the most frequently encountered or most common scenario is non-equi joins. So what do you mean by non-equi joins? Where you have a scenario where you have to write greater than equal to, less than equal to, between. So if those are the conditions you have to mention in your join condition, then you cannot easily do that with a HANA CV. HANA CV is basically left outer join, right outer join, inner join, text join, referential join, full outer join. Now with HANA 2.0, you have non-equi joins also. They have given except, intercept, less than equal to, greater than equal to. Yes, I agree that with the new versions of HANA Database 2.0, you can access advanced specifically. You have those non-equi joins also. But there are still scenarios like loop. If you want to loop through a set of records and then you have to perform some actions on each record. If you have to access your row tables, So in HANA calculation view, usually you can have only column tables. You can add column tables. But what if there is a row table, a configuration table, for example, and you want to access that? Then all those scenarios, you have to write a non-equijoin based or a loop based table function. So table function is basically a set of code which will provide you with the flexibility of writing loops, writing non-equijoins, writing lot of other like accessing your row tables and things like that. So it will give you more flexibility than a graphical. So this is one of the example we have used in our training. So where we used to have between clause, right? I had a requirement to use between clause within my join condition. So I said from table number 1 A left outer join table number B 2 B on the client equal to client, address number equal to address number, and my user provided input parameter date between my date from and date to. And then you done. This is a very, very simple example, but table functions can become very, very complex. You can write a lot of code here. As I told you, this is just one internal table, but you can write several internal tables which uses one another in the code, and then you can do you can do non-equijoins, you can do the looping, and you can do all the custom complex scenarios, which is not easily possible with a graphical CE. The most important or the most common thing which we did with the table function is hierarchy flattening. So you can give that example also. If you have done it in your project, what happens is when you load data from S4 HANA, the hierarchy tables, which stores the cost center hierarchy, cost element hierarchy, profit center hierarchy. So those tables are not flattened tables in the sense that your node data will be in a separate table, your leave data will be in a separate table, your text for the nodes will be in a separate table, your text for the leaf will be in a separate table. So it's basically different tables will store all the data. And if you have to bring that into HANA and provide a flattened version of hierarchy, you have to go through the loop between those tables, find the parent, find the child, then again find the parent of that child, or recursive. So a child can be a parent to another child. So you go step by step with the loop within those tables and flatten the hierarchy. And for that, a table function is usually used. It is difficult to do it with the calculation view. I'm not saying it's impossible. Yes, you can do it with the CV also, but with a table function, it will give you a lot of flexibility to add multiple tables, loop through them, do multiple iterations, and then flatten the hierarchy, and finally create a CV on that flattened table where you have put the results. So that's one of the common scenarios for using a table function. Okay. Oh, my favorite. What is the difference between input parameter and variable? This is a very common question. And the answer is input parameter and variable both are used to restrict data, but an input parameter is better from a performance standpoint. If you want to improve the performance of a CV, we will always go for input parameter. If you want to use a CV in a BW composite provider, you will always prefer input parameter over a variable. So input parameter can be applied on a projection node in a calculation view. Variable cannot be applied on a projection node. Input parameter can be used inside a filter expression. Variables cannot be used inside a filter expression. Input parameters can be used to restrict data before the calculations. Same thing, projection node. And variables are always applied at the top of the CV calculation. That means when everything, all the joins, calculations, everything is done, then the filter will apply if you put it as a variable. Better for performance, and this is not good for performance compared to input parameter. But variables are better in which scenario? Can you give me one scenario where variable is actually better than the input parameter, or which will force you to use a variable instead of an input parameter? Anyone?
For range.
That's right. So input parameter usually provides single value, multiple single values, but it has limitations when it comes to interval or range or those types of selection from the user. So for that, for range, interval, etc., you prefer variable. Another important use of variable is if you want to put blank value for selection. Say for example, the user doesn't give any value. Okay. If you want that, if the user gives blank, that means user does not put any value, it should return everything. Then you go for variable. Because in input parameter, if you put blank or doesn't give anything, either it will throw you an error if it's a mandatory variable, or if it's an optional variable, then it will give you nothing. Because the data for blank is not found, or the data for null is not found in the source table. But if you want a behavior where blank means give me everything, I don't want to put a value, that means give me everything, then variables will work better there. So those are the few scenarios where variables are preferred over input parameter. But except for those, all other scenarios, I would recommend input parameters. Next question. Can you tell me in SQL, if you have to identify duplicates in a table, how will you do it? Yes. Sometimes, they will test that whether you are really hands-on in SQL script or you just have theoretical knowledge. So I was asked this question, very simple question. Okay. How will you write a simple SQL? Give me a simple SQL statement which will identify duplicates in a table. So basically the person was testing me whether I have worked with group by and having clause or not. If you have written SQL script, you should be very well aware, and this is one of the most commonly encountered issues to remove duplicates from the table. So a very simple statement is select customer count as count rec from table A. So customer have duplicates. So basically this table had duplicate customers, and I had to find out that how many duplicates are there, identify duplicates. So I'll just write select customer count star as count rec from table A, group by customer. Group by becomes mandatory when you are using aggregation functions like count or your row functions or your max or your min or your average. So if you use all your aggregation functions, then group by becomes mandatory. So because I'm using count, which is one of the aggregation functions, so I will just say group by customer having the count rec greater than 1. This will identify my duplicate. How? Because if a customer has more than one record, then the count will be greater than 1. So all those customers where the count rec is greater than 1, I want those, and those will be my duplicate customers. And then I can use the result of this particular query to say that, I'll remove the duplicates from these customers. Okay. So this is an easy way to identify duplicates in a table using group by, having, and a count function. Next question. When do you transport in, when you do transport in Native HANA, what if the physical schema within the target system, say target is for example my QA system, is not identical to the physical schema in the dev system, which is my source? What will you do then? So basically the scenario is that my schema name, where all my tables are, in the dev system is dev_123. But in my QA system, the same schema where my tables are there is called QA_123. If you transport your HANA series, it's going to fail because it will not find dev_123 in the QA system. This is a very, very valid scenario. What would you do? How would you handle this? So we will handle this via schema mapping. There is a concept in Native HANA called schema mapping, where you will go to the quick launch. In the quick launch, you will see the option called schema mapping. And in the schema mapping, you will provide the source schema, which is also called authoring schema, and the target schema, which is called your physical schema. So in our scenario, in our example, dev underscore 123 will be on the authoring schema, and QA underscore 123 will be your physical schema. And if you have any other schemas like this as well, you can mention all of them in the list here. Once you do this, and if you save it and finish it, then when you transport it, you will have an option, you will have a successful transport without any failures. Okay, so this is a way to handle different schema names in dev versus QA and production. Now, my question is to you guys, where will you do this schema mapping? Will you do this schema mapping in dev system, or will you do this schema mapping in QA system?
Dev system.
Okay, so Amit is saying dev system. Do you guys agree?
In QA.
Who's that? Kiran?
No, Shayan.
Oh, okay. So Shayan is saying in QA system. So we have one vote for QA, one for dev. Anyone else?
Schema mapping, you do it in every system, right?
So you are saying we will do it in dev system, and we will also do it in QA system, and we'll do it in production
And
system, all the three?
Yeah, because that's where it always refers, your CTS always refers to the schema mapping. The basis will have to set this up in all the thing, and that's where they have the special role to get this mapping done.
So is that Kiran?
Yes, Evansh.
Yes. So schema, you are absolutely right, Kiran. Schema mapping is usually it is done in the target system. So basically QA and production for sure, because when you transport, but it's the best practice to do it in dev system as well. So all the systems, if you do it, then you will have no problems. But we have tried only in QA and prod, which are basically the target systems. So basically, when you transport the CVs, it will always, in the target system, it will check where it is coming from, and it will check whether we have a authoring and physical schema or not, and it doesn't. So you're right. Minimum for it to work, all target systems should have the schema mapping. But if you have it in all systems, yes, that's best practice as well. All right. Next question. Oh, yeah. One more use case. Can you tell me another use case of schema mapping except for transport? Which other scenario will require you to do schema mapping except transports? So forget about transports. Any other scenario?
If the tables are pointing to different schema, then you do that.
Your SLT schemas, right?
Yeah.
But again, that will be when the transport will happen, right? All those SLT is sitting in a different schema in QA, SLT is sitting in a different in dev. That will come into picture when you transport your CVs. But I'm talking about a scenario which is not connected to transport. Standard content installation. If you have a standard package from SAP, which you have to install in your dev system or your QA system or wherever, you want to install that package. That package has a bunch of HANA CVs from standard SAP. For that, SAP expects to have a schema called SAP underscore BW or SAP underscore AR, SAP underscore FI, whatever is a standard naming convention from SAP. If you are installing a standard content from SAP in your native HANA database, then you have to maintain the authoring schema as the default schema name from SAP. Say, for example, SAP BW, which I have shown here. SAP BW. So authoring schema will be SAP BW, and your actual schema where you want to have all those tables or all those HANA CVs which should point to, your tables in your HANA CV should point to, you will mention in your physical schema. If you have created with the same name, what SAP is recommending, then you don't need it. But still, it is a best practice to have authoring schema and physical schema maintained when you are installing standard content from SAP. That's another use case for schema mapping. So first use case is your transport, and second use case is installing standard content from SAP. All right, next question. So please give me like few more minutes. Let me finish all the HANA CV questions, and then we will open the forum for Q&A, and then we'll go for behavioral questions. Okay, so next question is, how do you handle multiple clients coming from ECC or S4 in your native HANA CV? Very simple answer. There is a property called cross client, which will enable to handle multiple clients. So in development, usually there are multiple clients, but in QA and production, there is only one client. So, and even if the client is different from dev, so in dev, your S4 might have 010 client, but in QA, it becomes 020, and production also 020. Then having the property of cross client will ensure that all the values are properly handled, and you don't have to basically hard code the client for your HANA series. Cross client will handle it. Now, cross client has a little bit of a disadvantage in development, because cross client in development will bring data from all the clients, right? So for that, what you can do is keep the property as cross client, but in your HANA CV, in that projection node where you are getting the table from, you can put a filter expression of the MANDT or CLINT equals to XYZ 010, only in dev, right? But when your testing and everything is done, then you remove that filter and then you transport the CV to your subsequent environment. So don't forget to remove that when your testing is done in dev, because in dev, the cross client will bring all the client data, okay, if you have multiple clients. So cross client property in the semantic node, which is a top node, will provide the flexibility to handle multiple clients coming from your source database, S4 or any other. Next. Okay, here I have not given any answers because I'm going to ask you guys if you know the answer, and then we'll discuss the actual answer. So I created an input parameter in a HANA CV and made it mandatory. But when I'm executing the CV, I am not getting that input parameter in the prompts. What might be the issue?
Need to map in the semantic node.
Need to map in the semantics node. What do you mean by that exactly?
I mean, it has to be, when we create input parameter, it has to be not mapping exactly, it has to be available in the semantic node.
Okay, so I created and it is available in the semantics node. I can see that there's an input parameter created. I can see that I have made it mandatory. But when I'm executing that CV, that's not popping up.
It has to apply at the particular node also.
Exactly.
Then only it will come, yeah.
Yes, yes. So the answer to that is, it has to be applied to a node filter expression. So there are two steps for input parameter to work. First, you create it. Second step is you have to map it to a particular node. By mapping, I mean to say that you will say that in your filter expression, suppose you have created input parameter for calendar day, right? And user has chosen a calendar day. So in your projection node, on the table where you want to apply that filter, you will say cal day equal to my input parameter. So that mapping or that application of input parameters has to be done. Then only the input parameter will start showing up. Just creation will not be enough, obviously, right? Okay, next question. How do you remove duplicates in a dimension CV? So I have a master data CV. I have no transaction data. It's pure customer dimension CV. but there are duplicates in the CV. How will you remove the duplicates? And when I say duplicates, I mean to say there are absolute duplicates. I mean the same value for all the attributes is repeating multiple times, but you don't want that. You want a clean, unique values only. How will you do that?
We need to create a aggregation node on top of that.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Good answer, Amit. So I think you have faced these scenarios. Aggregation node. Aggregation node in a dimension CV behaves as a duplicate remover. Aggregation node in a transaction data CV will act as a summation of your values. Whether it is sum, min, max does not matter, but it's basically based on whatever is the behavior of the summation, it will sum up the values. But aggregation node in a dimension CV will remove your duplicates. So that's the difference. Okay, good answer. Difference between a text join and a left outer join.
Text join is generally used for language, Divanshu.
Okay, so Sirisha is saying text join is for language. What do you mean by that? Can you explain a little bit?
Language dependent, like we can restrict whether it's an English, German, and Spanish language like that.
But that I can do with just saying language equals to English. So then my only language will be English, right? Why do I need a text join for restricting the language?
I think text join is for time dependent. Those are time dependent.
No, text join is not time dependent.
Text join refers to language by default. You don't have to mention it. And I guess it picks up this language from your user profile.
Absolutely. Yes, Kiran, you got it. Text join picks up the language automatically from the user session. So when a user logs in and executes a HANA CV, there are some default variables behind the scenes, like user session ID, user session language, etc. That user session language is automatically picked up by the text join and it is applied to the results. You don't have to separately mention it. That is the difference between a text join and a left outer join. So if I'm a user in German language, I'm logging into German language or French language, then I don't have to specifically tell the CV that only give me results in French. It will automatically filter the results and give me the descriptions in French. Similarly, if I am a German user, it will give me the descriptions in German, and so on for English, Spanish, etc. Provided those translations are maintained in your table, of course. And that is a prerequisite. If your table doesn't have the data, then it will show null or blank, right? But if your table has data for French or English or German or Spanish, then the description will automatically come as per user session language. Follow-up question: is text join inner join or a full outer join?
Left outer.
Left outer join. Yeah.
Yes, text join will always act as left outer join. Text join, if it doesn't find data on the right hand side, it will still show you the data, but it will show you blank if it is not existing on the right hand side. All the left hand side data will be shown to you. Right hand side data will depend on whether it exists or not. Plus, it takes the session language from the user session and then filters the data accordingly. So that's the difference between text join and outer join. Great. How do you stop the developers to create CVs directly under a parent package instead of a dedicated CV package?
Checking
Package
By
privilege.
making as a structural package.
Wow, you guys are already pros, so you know all these things. So yes, structural package. So there is something called a structural package. How do you make a package a structural package, by the way?
While creating a package, you'll have that option checkout.
Exactly. So package properties, when you create it, or if you've already created, just go to the package properties, right click package properties. So there you will have a small checkbox called structural. What that means is this is only for structure. You cannot create objects directly under it. Only a regular package will allow you to create objects, not a structural package. Okay. Again, these are not the full list of all the types of questions in a HANA interview. There are many more questions which I am not able to cover because of the interest of time. But if you have more questions, then let's discuss a couple of them which you have faced, which I have not listed here, and then we'll go to the behavior loop. So let me open the forum for your questions, or if you have any questions on the content we just discussed, please go ahead.
Banshu, this is not from this question. This is out of box. Like,
yes, tell me.
Still, this BW for HANA and Native HANA is still existing. I mean, because I'm trying from 4 months, I'm not getting an interview scheduled. I'm staying in USA now. So I'm in a dilemma, like whether to still, try in this forum, or I don't know, based on the market. Just an opinion, like want to.
So what exactly are you
No, I'm
trying to
trying
understand?
from 4 months.
And you're not
the
getting a job
also
interview
is
scheduled.
not getting scheduled, and
Okay.
rarely I get some opportunity, like one opportunity which is like almost from 3 months, which is from Adobe client.
Right.
But then that's only is roaming out, like, and that is also asking like almost ECC to S4 migration. Have you done?
Okay.
So I'm not getting any interview scheduled. Trying from 4 months, but I'm just asking you an opinion that to stay still in this, or to
Move out to other technologies.
Other technology, or what is the scenario, like how is it gonna be in the future?
Okay. Basically, what Sirisha is asking is, what technology I should be in? Should I continue in BW HANA space and keep trying? Because since last 4 months, she didn't get any interview calls. So she's now in getting inclined towards looking into other technologies like Azure or Snowflake or Databricks or Google Cloud Platform. So should she start ramping up on those technologies, or should she stay in SAP space? And if she has to stay in SAP space, what skills or knowledge she should ramp her on? So that's the question. So my input would be that if your resume has BW in it, has HANA in it, and that's it, that's not good enough. You will not easily find a job interview if you just have BW and HANA. So let me ask you this before I further expand on this. What skill sets you have listed in your resume?
Yeah, BW for HANA also, Debanshu,
Okay.
because I have an experience converting. We had a migration project
Right.
that for Severn Trent Water we have done for BW 7.5 to BW for HANA. We have migrated model-wise. We have been migrated through shell methodology.
Okay.
So end to end, I've done in that. Almost for 3 years, I've been done.
Okay,
And
but you have not
8.1
faced any ECC to S4 HANA migration project.
No, Debanshu. HANA also I have, like we have done for HP client. I've worked for almost 2 years in creating all these calculation views. In the development team, I was there.
Yes. Okay. So you have experience in BW. You have experience in BW for HANA. You also have experience in migration, but that migration was purely for BW side. So BW on HANA to BW for HANA. Plus, you have Native HANA experience, which includes your CVs, DB procedures, table functions, etc. Okay. That is really good experience. So it is a good resume, I would say, if you have BW for HANA plus migration.
I have an experience in HANA to Snowflake migration, Debanshu. We haven't done the migration part, but I'm good about like Snowpipes, everything like Snowflake things too.
Yeah, so I think that you can highlight and you can look for Snowflake related projects. Yes, but I would also ask you to add SAC. SAC, if you are in US right now, I don't know where exactly you are, but if you are in
based out of in New York, Dipanshu.
You're in New York, okay. So SAC is becoming popular in US and in North America and Europe as well. So I would say that ramp up your knowledge on SAC. Plus, the question they asked, right, from ECC to S4 HANA. If there is a migration, what are the BW impact? What are the BW steps? What are the BW remediation tasks which you'll have to do? Plus SAC you'll have to do, plus CDS views. Have you worked on CDS views?
No, Dipanshu. No.
Okay.
But I have an idea of like creating annotations and all. Sample things I learned from Udemy, but not a real-time kind of scenario.
Okay. So I would say that these are the 3 things you should put in your resume and prepare yourself on and start looking for SAC opportunities. SAC will give you a much better chance than just relying on BW and HANA. Because right now in the market, they need a packaged consultant. Package means they should have BW experience, HANA experience, plus SAC experience, including SAC planning. SAC planning is picking up very well in both North America and European markets. I don't know about Asia specific, but yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's because it's discussion is going on. So I have just to ask one thing over here at this point. So if the job is purely for the SAC, and you as the lady has already mentioned that she has already done all the stuff. So if the job is purely for the SAC, so you have to mention what you have done in BW side or BW on HANA side. If the job is purely for the SAC.
If you have worked in BW for HANA and HANA, yes, you should mention that as well. Plus, you should mention SAC, but you should highlight the SAC experience and keep the BW and HANA as a regular experience in your resume. Why? Because a SAC consultant, okay, will need to integrate SAC and load the data into SAC. For loading the data into SAC, he or she will usually deal with either BW query or S4 HANA CDS view or S4 HANA OData service. If it's an SAP source. If it's a non-SAP source, it's a different story for SAC. But if you are dealing as an SAC consultant, you have to be aware of what a BW query looks like. How will you integrate data in SAC and load the data from BW query? How will you do that mapping? And how will you connect to CDS views in S4 HANA if you have to connect to S4 HANA, and how will you load the data? So yes, a simple SAC or a pure SAC job also should a consultant highlight BW HANA experience. Oh yeah, sometimes you have to connect SAC to HANA calculation views also. So no S4 CDS view, no BW query, but directly taking the data from HANA CVs. There are projects like that as well. So if you have mentioned these things, that's really going to help you, even if the job is pure SAC consultant.
Devanshu, thanks for the time. Devanshu, Srini here.
Yes.
Yeah, Devanshu, what about the data sphere, how it is there in the market right now, as per your experience?
Okay, so my experience is data sphere is still very slow as a I would say as an adoption from the clients. Data sphere is being looked into, yes, by the large enterprises. Like for example, we have Messer, MESSER. Messer, they are into gas, right? So Messer has implemented SAC plus data sphere. We have Toyota, who's implementing data sphere here in North America. I'm talking about. So yes, there are adoptions for data sphere, but not a lot. If I have to compare between SAC and data sphere, SAC has much more adoption and it is gaining more popularity faster than Data Sphere. The reason is all the BW clients, they are looking at Data Sphere, but they are not sure how to migrate all their complex flows from BW to Data Sphere. Data Sphere has not been matured enough right now to handle the migration of BW to Data Sphere. You have to use something called a BW bridge, right? In between. BW bridge is basically inside Data Sphere, there is a space which is BW bridge space, and that basically gives you a BW for HANA inside Data Sphere. And you have to first migrate all your flows to BW bridge, and then later on from BW bridge to your native Data Sphere flows, right? Whether it's a SQL flow or a replication flow or whatever it is. But BW bridge is the savior right now. But even BW bridge has limitations. It cannot migrate all your BW queries seamlessly. It cannot migrate all the complex flows, including your start routine, end routine, expert routine. There are some issues. I have been into one Data Sphere project where we did a POC for a client, where we assessed that all their complex flows, can it be easily migrated to BW bridge and native Data Sphere? And then SAP also came into that assessment with us. And they said that yes, 60-70% can be, but that 30-40% is still very, very complex, and that has to be done manually. So yes, Data Sphere is becoming popular, but not as fast as SAC.
Exactly, Devanshu. We have done a POC for the client, and the client shooted so many questions on how you are going to import all the BW existing queries that we don't have any answer, and we parallelly even the BW bridge is not fulfilled all the scenarios. So we are
Exactly.
facing some issues.
I'm telling you, BW bridge and Data Sphere at least needs 1 or 2 years more in order to be matured enough to handle BW migrations end to end. It is not yet there. Yeah, fresh. What you can do is you can have a sidecar scenario. That means your BW production can run in parallel. Don't interrupt that. Don't try to migrate that to your Data Sphere BW bridge. In parallel, you buy the license of BTP. There's a BTP license now. Everything is through BTP. So buy the BTP license of enterprise, which will give you Data Sphere and BW bridge, and try to sidecar. Okay, it's a side project, not your actual migration. Don't start the migration yet. Gradually try to move your sales and distribution flow from BW, example, and see how it goes. See how your queries are actually getting migrated to bridge. Is it successfully bringing all your customer exits, user exits in your your queries? Is it successfully bringing all the data flows, including your start routine, end routine, everything, your composite provider? And do it sidewise. And then once you are comfortable, you know the effort estimation, then you gradually move incrementally. I would not recommend a big bang approach of moving all your BW into Data Sphere and take a big project where you will face a lot of challenges and limitations. So it's not yet there, but it is coming up. Gradually, SAP is making it gradually more robust. But that's why I'm saying, if you have to have a choice between focusing your energy and time in Data Sphere versus SAC, I will pick SAC at the moment. It's easy to learn also, and also it is more popular. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Actually, Devanshu, with my 14 years of experience with SAP, and what they are doing is they will announce the product first, and later they will develop the product. That is the worst scenario they are following right now. If you have a chance to convey this message to Mullar or even they or whoever is the head of the department of the analytics center, please pass this message to them that don't announce the product without making ready because we are facing so many problems from the client actually.
You are absolutely right, and I hear you. I completely understand your dilemma, and I'll tell you why SAP is doing it. Okay, SAP is very, very late in the cloud game. SAP has lost hundreds of customers to either Microsoft or Google or Amazon. Okay, so now they are in a hurry to launch cloud products as soon as possible. So they are launching those cloud products even if it is half baked. So it doesn't have the full functionality, but at least they can say that, okay, now we have competition or a similar product what Azure Synapse, which is a data warehouse now. Now it is Fabric. So Fabric is the new data warehouse from Microsoft. So now we have a comparative product of Fabric, Microsoft Fabric. Now we have a comparative product of Google BigQuery. Now we have a comparative product of Amazon Redshift. So they have to be now faster and quicker than Microsoft, Google, and Amazon if they have to win the cloud game, which they are not. They are very, very left behind, or they are lagging big time in cloud game. That's why these half-baked products, trust me. But thankfully, I am telling you, SAP's, sorry to use the curse word, but SAP's ass was saved by SAC. SAC product has saved SAP in the cloud game because of two reasons. First, it is giving planning, which none of the other tools are giving easily. We have planning in other tools as well, but not as strong and seamless with SAP's product, integrated seamless SAP with SAP product as SAC planning. SAC planning is really becoming very, very popular. Now it has consolidation also, which is called group reporting. SAC is providing that. So SAC has saved SAP, I'll say. Now, based on that, gradually, Data Sphere is being developed, and maybe in a couple of years, the more adoption you will see in the market. There is a hand raised by Harsh. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, hi. Devanshu, I have one question. Is like I have worked on SAC, mostly on the CDS views, S4HANA CDS views.
Yes.
But there are some scenarios where I have heard that they use the BW. I just want to understand in what scenarios S4HANA being used as a BW queries to the SAC.
Okay, great question. So I recently completed an SAC planning project for a US customer where they had BW query as a source. So now her question is that which scenarios we will go for BW queries and which scenarios we'll go for S4 CDS views. So if your data to your SAC has to consist of the consolidated data, that means data coming from your SAP sources, plus your flat files, plus your third-party sources. They want the entire enterprise data into SAC, and then they want to do the planning based on the entire enterprise data. Then we will go for BW query, because BW is consolidating all that enterprise data in one place and then giving you a query, which is giving you all the dimensions and key figures or measures you require for your SAC. If you don't have multiple sources, if you just have S4HANA and you don't need a consolidation system where you have flat files also, third-party databases also, you don't have that scenario. You purely have SAP S4HANA as your source, then you don't need any BW, then your SAC will directly connect to S4HANA and get the data. That is scenario number one. Scenario number two, if you have planning related requirement for your financial statements, P&L planning, okay? So P&L planning, like your income statement, your balance sheet, your cash flow statement. These are the three financial statements planning. If you want to use data for these and you want to plan in SAC based on these financial statements, then you will directly connect to S4 and then you will get the data directly from the GL for the hierarchy, and you will connect to AC doc A, AC doc P for the planning data, and then you will do some planning allocations in SAC, and then you will write back the data in S4. So that is another scenario where you don't need BW. Even if you have BW, S4HANA is preferred because you will get the data, the hierarchy, the FSVs in the right format from S4 rather than BW.
And will that be a BW for HANA or it's only BW on HANA? How will you differentiate that? On an S4 system? On an S4 system?
Yeah, it does not matter. BW on HANA can connect to SAC. BW for HANA can connect to SAC. It does not really, there is no restriction like that. And BW on traditional databases like Oracle, SQL Server, etc., classic BW can also easily connect to SAC.
Okay, thank you. And if I have one more question is on SAC, the most of the requirements is coming from only for planning. but that planning needs more of functional knowledge as well, whether it's a sales or a finance.
Correct.
So if someone from a technical background coming to an SAC planning, there are some scenarios where it's getting a little difficult because the planning mostly they check from the functional point of view.
Yes. Okay, so good question. So she is saying that in SAC, usually the projects are planning related projects. And if it's a planning related projects, then they will expect a little bit of functional knowledge. And the answer is yes, they will. And you should ramp up yourself a little bit on the functional knowledge. Like I'll give you an example. Recently, my current contract just ended last week and I'm joining a new contract. So in this new contract, it's a product cost planning project. Okay. So it doesn't deal with P&L. FP&A is not there. FP&A stands for financial planning and analysis. This P&L, balance sheet, etc. comes all under the umbrella of FP&A. So I did a project in FP&A planning, but now that contract is done, I'm joining the next contract, and which was product cost planning. Okay. So I didn't have any knowledge, functional knowledge. Technically, yes, in SSC I have worked a lot, so I have good experience in SSC technically, but functionally I did not have the knowledge for product cost planning. So what did I do? For preparation, I went to my SAC trial. So you know that you can get an SAC trial server very easily. It's usually for 60 to 90 days. And I downloaded something called standard content from SAP for product cost planning. There is a standard content in SAC which you can download, which is FP&A content is also there, product cost planning content is also there, sales planning is also there, and cost center planning is also there. So there are a variety of standard content you can download in your trial server. Okay, I downloaded that. And if you want, I can show you as well in my trial server. So what I did was I went through the model. So I went through the model in the standard content. That gave me an idea of what are the dimensions and measures used in PCP, product cost planning. Okay, so that gave me an idea. Then I went through the data actions, very, very important. That data action code showed me that what is happening inside the code, and I got to know that there is something called a quantity structure. I didn't know what is that. So I got a new term from that data action. They mentioned something called quantity structure in product cost planning. So I went in Google and I typed what is quantity structure. Then I came to know, oh, quantity structure is nothing but your BOM plus your routing. So I got to that functional knowledge that, okay, quantity structure means your BOM and routing. Then I Googled what is BOM. Then I got to know BOM is nothing but your material, raw material, plus quantity of that raw material used to produce the finished product. That is BOM. And what is my routing? Routing is the activities to assemble the finished product with their time. How much time will it take? Like, for example, if you want to, if it's a bicycle manufacturing company, okay? So what is the BOM? BOM will be your seat, your body, your handle, and how many quantities you need? One seat, one body, one handle, your tires. How many tires you need? 2. This is your BOM, simple. Then what is your routing? Routing is first you will put the seat on the body. No, routing is actually assembly. So you assemble the product and then you do quality inspection. And then you do some more testing, things like that. So whatever activities you are doing to put the finished product, that is called routing. Okay. So just by going into that data action, I got to know so many new things in product cost planning.
దాంట్లో కొంచెం
right?
basic
So
మనలో
you have to
వచ్చేటట్టు
download the
upload
standard
చేస్తున్నాను.
content for that particular
ఇక్కడ
FP&A or product cost planning. Guys, if you can mute yourself, I can hear some background noise. Okay, sorry. So I have muted you. Sorry, there was some feedback, background noise. So just by going into the technical details, I got to know some key language and terminologies. Then I Googled and I got to know the functional side of it. And then I went through some YouTube videos of what is a product cost planning, how, what is what you call a recipe. In the product cost planning, there's something called a recipe, and then plus sales quantity, etc. So I did my research, 2-3 hours of research where I got to know functional aspects of product cost planning. And recently I cracked the interview by explaining them that yes, I have some functional background. I know what is the quantity structure. I know in a product cost planning, quantity structure is being used to derive the BOM and routing, and then you put sales quantities and then you plan on that. So that gave the interview the confidence that yes, technically he knows, plus functionally also he knows. They will not expect you to be a pure functional consultant, but they will at least expect you to know these key terms, and these key terms can be easily seen in the data actions, in the models, in the stories. So go through the stories also. So SAP has given you the standard content for many types of planning, including FP&A, including sales, including product cost, and many more. So I would recommend go through that and then do your research. All right, next question, Ram, go ahead, you have your hand raised.
Hi Devanshu, this is Ram Babu. You might remember that recently I spoke with you.
Yes, Ram, I remember, yes.
Yeah. I'm also regarding Data Sphere and BW, I'm also same page, and I would like to ask Srini what kind of challenges he faced during his POC. So as I know, there are some couple of limitations while converting back queries to BW Bridge.
Yes.
I wanted to ask whether he gone to shell migration or remote conversion. Srini, can you please mention what are the challenges you have faced during the conversion to BW Bridge?
Srini, if you are there, maybe in a short bullet forms, if you can give us some pointers of what are the challenges we will face when we will move our BW to Data Sphere.
Sure, Devanshu. I will list it out and I will post it to you.
Okay,
you can share it.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Thank you, Srini.
Appreciate that.
And
Srini.
Devanshu, just one more question. Devanshu, actually, how to learn this SSC planning in best way, in short term?
In best way. Okay. So
even Devanshu also having the same question. How to learn.
Okay.
Thanks, friend.
And Devanshu, I'll add my question to that because I had raised my hand.
Yes,
I've always been waiting for your SSC planning call. When are you going to do that? I guess that answers all of these questions.
It does, and you will be actually pleasantly surprised to hear that I had this as a last section, but now since you're asking, so my SSC planning and reporting training is coming soon, and the definition of soon is next month. So in July, I'm planning to launch my SSC reporting and planning course, which is going to cover all these 8 chapters. So we have the planning focused here. So we'll zoom in on the planning. I will give you an actual customer scenario of planning. Then we'll discuss the model, the imports, public versus private dimensions, FSVs and CD. We will create the FSVs and CDS view for income statement, P&L. Then we will see how we'll create the CDS view for hierarchies. We'll import it into SSC. I'll show you what an input screen is, data actions, multi-actions, value driver trees, allocations, commenting. So we will go into detail of SSC planning. Plus, I will show you predictive analytics also in SSC, how to do it. And then we'll see security authorizations, and then basic scripting knowledge also I'll give you for SSC planning. So You don't have to wait for long. Next month, dates are not yet finalized. I'll just finalize the dates and announce on LinkedIn. But July, this course is launching. So if you can wait, then I would request you to wait. But if you have an immediate need and you can't wait till July, then I would recommend to go through SAP's playlist on planning. They have a YouTube playlist on planning, and they have some learning journeys. So you can go for planning learning journeys and see how you can benefit from that. They are really great. I have gone through, when I was learning SAC planning, the learning journeys and YouTube playlist from SAP was really, really helpful for me. So I would recommend you that as well. Okay. Any more? Okay, I'll take one last question before I go into the behavioral part of the interview readiness. Go ahead.
Devanshu, there is a question in the comments. Someone is saying, Raja is saying, they were even SAC is slow. Most of the reports are taking long time to load after optimization.
Okay, Raja, can you? Yeah, I'm reading that in the chat now. So, sorry, I'm going to unmute even SAC is slow. Most of the reports are taking long time to load after optimization. Please check filters or input parameters. Yeah, Srinivas has given a pointer that you can check input like prompts, your filters, if you're applying filters or not, how the data is coming. If it's from a BW query, then you can apply some optimization like caching and etc. in BW query itself if it's a live reporting. And if it is live reporting and if it is still slow after we have every optimization, then I would request you to start a parallel model, import the data from the BW query or CDS views or HANA CV, whatever you're connecting to. Import the data every day or every 6 hours, 8 hours, frequency is up to you. And then you migrate your reports onto that model, which is an import data model instead of live model. That will solve most of your problem. That's what happened in one of my projects also. We had heavy reliance on live reporting. There were huge hierarchies which were happening on live reporting. There were data actions happening, not data actions, sorry. There were the formula, calculated key figures were created. So it was based on live data, and that's why it was taking a lot of time. So we converted it to import data model, and it became really, really fast. Second is, if you are using heavy scripting like Analytics Designer, try not to use Analytics Designer to a very, very large extent. Try to minimize that and convert that into data actions, which will pre-calculate your data in your model and keep it ready. And then, so we discussed all these techniques. We have discussed the SAC related performance optimization in part 1, where we have discussed all the questions for BW and also for SAC. So please, I would request you to go through part 1 recording, because I don't want to discuss the same content again, which will be basically a repetition of that. So we have covered this. Yeah, so Ram, do you have any other questions, or is it all answered?
Yes, Devanshu, it will be great if you can cover some topics on BW Bridge as well along with SAC. What I observed is only the challenge is here the conversion from BW or BW for HANA to BW Bridge. Apart from that, BW Bridge looks like same, very similar to BW for HANA platform, but
Correct.
it is a cloud.
Correct. BW Bridge is basically your BW for HANA system.
For HANA cloud.
In Data Sphere, so which is basically cloud.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
The major challenge I have seen here, the conversion part only. Remaining thing bit easier, looks like BW for HANA.
Yes. So unfortunately, I will not be able to cover that in my SAC training, because this will be a completely different topic in from SAC. But after my SAC planning course, I am working on my Data Sphere course as well, which might take another couple of months. Maybe by August, September, it will launch. But there, in that Data Sphere course, I will thoroughly cover BW Bridge.
Yeah, okay.
For sure.
Thank you, Devanshu.
No problem, no problem. Okay, so let's go ahead and discuss the behavioral part. So I'll request you to mute yourself, and then at the end we will have a Q&A session as well, where finally we'll end it with your.
Himanshu, just 1 minute actually. How are you going to announce the SAC planning course? You going to let us go on LinkedIn, or you going to mail us?
2 channels I'm going to use. Actually, 3 channels. Channel number 1, LinkedIn. I'm going to announce on LinkedIn. So stay tuned for LinkedIn announcements. Channel number 2, email IDs. So I'm going to send email to all the people who have participated in my batch, or who have sent me direct emails inquiring the dates and the duration of the training. So I will send personal emails as well. So if you want me to include your email ID, I would request you to send me an email. If I don't have it, I'll add it to this email ID. I'm just putting in the chat. Just send me an email that, I'm interested in your planning course or Data Sphere course, and I'm going to send you personally the announcement as well. So I just pinged in the chat, dipanshu.mukherjee@gmail.com. This is my Gmail ID. So if I have your email, you will get it. If I don't have your email, then I will add it if you ping it in the chat. And don't use chat, sorry. Send me an email directly to my email address. That will be better.
Thanks. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure, mate.